Hello, beautiful artisans. Well, I enjoying a nice hot cup of coffee. I actually have a cold, and I don't know if you can hear it, so I apologize ahead of time if I cough. I'm going to try to get through this and not cough. So I got a cold probably from it being in the 90s and then dropping to the 60s. So back and forth like that, it's perfect remedy for a cold, right? So, with that, I just want to say welcome, everybody. If you are coming back, welcome back. And I love your comments and questions. And I'm going to actually address a question before we start our project today. And if you are new, welcome on board. You know, we give a lot of attention to our beautiful Mother Earth by focusing on using recycled materials to create art and by being inspired by other cultures and by each other and our own creativity. So I'm so happy to have you. So the question was, if I have crocheted a hat and it's not fitting, pulling over the head, and I already started the brim, do I need to rip it out? Now, the easy answer and the safest, I believe, so the hat wouldn't be ruined, is to yes, rip out those rows and then a few rows more and then begin your increasing. That will keep to the size of your hat. Now, the more complicated answer is that if you are creative and you're ready to be a little daring and you want to make a hat that's a little bit different or kind of a little slouchy, when if you stay where you're at with at the brim and start to increase it there as though you were just continuing with your hat, what you're going to get is kind of a ridge effect. It's going to kind of bubble out, right? And from there, you can play around with your increase, decrease, and kind of make a slouchy hat with ridges. So the only reason I didn't want to write that down is I think it would be too complicated, but I did kind of want to throw that idea out there. That is another way, and I've done that and it works. Your hat style is different, but it does work. So with that, okay, so today we're making what I call a panel hat. Now, I'm going to save the next project uh, for to show you the different way to quilt, which is this way, which is actually creating each piece as a quilted piece and then putting the hat together. That's basically it. And that's something you can go ahead and do, but that's something that I will bring you along with me. Now, with that said, the way this hat is cut and made is what I call a panel hat. And you know, I'm not a sewist, I'm a creative artist and make art pieces. So that is today, there's two different ways I've made this type of hat. One, I'm going to put this up close so you can see. One is overlapping the panels. So each of your squares, excuse me, one is overlapping each of the squares as you go around. The other is to pinch them together. Now, when you pinch them together and you get all around the hat, you may have a space left. So you may have to respace. So for that reason, you will see me. What we will do first is pin just the top part of the panels and go around. Now, I do believe this is a little easier to just overlap them. However, the pinching effect is just a different style. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Now I'm going to share with you my design of what I perceive as a lotus. So I have these going different ways. And basically, I'm calling this lotus, which some people will get the abstract symbolism, and others won't. And that's okay, it doesn't matter. But I'm calling it from earth to bloom, something like that. From earth to sun, blooming. And here I'll explain why. Here I feel like this design, this is a little bit of a dirt. You know, the lotus comes alive out of mud. But I just put a tiny bit there because I really do want the lotuses to be the dominant design in this particular hat. I love these fabrics together, so I don't want to enmesh them into lots and lots of other designs. So, so that's what this is about, and this is kind of a just lovely cotton Aztec design. I love it. Terracotta, maybe it's in the pot. I don't know. That's just something that's there. So this is kind of symbology is like the water, the earth. It's coming up out of the water. This is the lotus in the bud form coming out of the water. And this is, I kind of like this one to go on the side. And this is kind of the earth that's looking up at the sky finally, or maybe that's the water reflecting the stars. And then this is just, you know, maybe the sun or the sky or just out in the beauty of away from the mud. So that's kind of the very uh, mild symbolism that I've added to these. So, so that's the lotus. So what I'm going to do, oh, and the other thing I did, if you look at the panels that I cut, you're going to see, excuse me, these buttons here. You see the buttons, and those are from the shirt. I left them right on because I'm going to tell you, there's definitely a concept, and it's a beautiful one called reflow. There's even, I think I had referenced all of you to a YouTube station. He calls himself Reflow, and he does absolutely stunning, expert, beautiful work. And so when he takes apart, and this is a whole skill, I believe it's a whole technical. I do it for the most part. Like you cut the sleeves first. Maybe you're going to reuse the sleeves, so you cut up the seam. Maybe you add or take away fabric there. Um, so it's in that way. It's called reflow. Now, what I did, so I was doing that for a very long time. And what I've decided to do is when I'm doing pieces, because right now I'm going to make lots of hats. So, and I know that. So I am cutting all the pieces up, including if it's a piece like this with the button. I'm not going to cut the seam of where the buttons are and save it. I'm going to just use it right into this project. So that's what I'm doing here. Now I have the idea that some of these seams that I cut, I want to go vertically, and others I want them to go at the bottom of the brim of the hat. So I'm just going to pin these a little bit better. Now, what I typically do is I do sew my design to the base. Now, we've done this many times, and I think what I'm going to do, because it's going to take me some hours, and I really, really wanted to get this video out there today for you, because some of you have seen these videos repeatedly on how we do our sashiko inspired visible stitching. So, and or sewing on the sewing machine. So today, because I know there's some people very specifically waiting to see how we pin, that's why we're going to focus on pinning. Now, what I may do is come back around and share with you as I focus on sewing, do some clips for you on the sashiko stitching. and I may make those short. So then you see and just kind of revamp how I do that. So now, if you want a whole video on that, at this point, I'm very happy to do that for you. I was going to wait kind of a little bit on that because I guess, we as a community have a number of projects lined up, and some of them totally entail sashiko stitching, but totally the hats do. And I totally, in case I haven't used the word totally, I'll be coming back to do hats and show you sashiko stitching. So with that, what I'm going to do is this piece first because I love, 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 love this piece. This is a little bud. And so you see me using the pinching effect. I'm just kind of pinching this together, and I'm doing the top pieces first. And if they're too far off, and I don't think I can get the side of the panels to line up as I'd like them so I can continue pinching, then what I will do is pull them out. As simple as that. So I love that. Look at that. This is going to be a beautiful hat, by the way. So, if any of you have not, if you haven't been able to get your styrofoam head, you can make one, And what I used to do before I was able to start buying heads uh, is I would take a bottle. I had these old milk bottles. I don't see one in front of me, but and just wrap them with sheets until it kind of came out. You can even use the bottle without wrapping anything around it just to hold the hat, because all you need to do is to really go around. Now I'm going to turn this my way for a moment, like this. Okay. So this one, um, I would love to have it go like this. So this panel is going that way. Or maybe I can have it. See, there's so many different things you can do. This piece, the little pink, I want that to be on the top for sure. Somewhere so that when they're looking, oh, yeah, and I did definitely want a silhouette of I'm just going to show you here. I wanted a silhouette of the lotus against that so I get the contrast. Let's see. Yes, this is the way I want it. So this seam is going to go on top. So I'm going to turn this so I can see, and then I'll turn it back towards you so you can see how I did this. And hopefully we don't run out of pins. I've been using pins a mile a minute here. Oh, this is lovely. Now, when you do, for anyone out there who is crocheting, when you do the granny square hat, you make your granny squares, it's the same thing. 4. I always use 4, about this size. Now, okay, so see, I pinned it. Now the idea is I'm going to come back around and pin these together. But first, I want to make sure that I have a full enough, everything's full, or see if I need another panel. Now there's a couple of things. If I need another panel, I can certainly make another panel, or I can spread them out and have a little space between them and add different scrap fabrics of denim. So it's a couple different ways you can do it. Probably what I would do is I'd want another panel. So, but with this, now mind you, typically when I am pinning, there's no pins in my panels because I've already sewn my design to my base. Okay, so this is looking good. These over here. And again, I am not trying to do this to perfection. I'm just doing this to get it pinned adequately as possible, but not trying to be absolutely perfect because I know I can shift and move things. That's the difference between me and if I was a sewist, I would be trying to get things exact. That would not work. So this, you can see right here, I'm going to put this down like this too. You can see it's the pinching effect that I use. So you lose a little bit of the inches there. That's okay. Now this is the last one. And this is our last space. Now you're like, well, Carmella, you're covering up the face. The reason I do it this way first is because after, and I'll show you, after we have everything pinned, then we can shift the hat as though on how they're wearing it. Now, I do it this way also because when you measure your head, okay, you go from the forehead, right? You're measuring from the forehead here. And include your hair if it's thick. You got a little thickness to it, like I do, you definitely want to include your hair. And then you go around and you're like, okay, you measure it and it's 20. So, whatever size hat you're trying, like the size of this model head, I already know is 19 and a half. So if this is going to be a little big, that's okay. But that's the idea, is that back of the head is the widest part of the measure. So I always put it down straight like that because I want to get a good idea on what's going on. So now I'm going to pinch this again. I guess you could say back to back or something like that. Now, you're probably like, well, Carmella, why do you have those snaps in there? Because isn't that going to bother the person? Now, when you put the lining in, it will take care of that issue. Now, the other thing you can do is you can put an just a very little extra piece of cloth on top of those snaps if you're worried about that. And they're not coming out like to such a point. Well, think of it like this. When you wear the shirt, if the snap is unsnapped, it's not terribly bothering you in that way. So they don't, in other words, they don't they're not protruding to cause such an issue. So this is the hat. It's kind of like a button. So this is the hat. And you're like, well, wait a minute, those are all uneven. Now that's okay. In my book, that's okay. Now there's a couple things we can do. I see this one in particular is most uneven. It's this one right here. I can pinch it a little bit more. So we're going to do that. Or I can take it off completely and I can trim it. So I'm going to pinch it a little bit more, and then I may trim it because I really want to show you this. It makes a difference. And you have a choice on how to do that. So I'm pinning it and bringing it up a little past that crown, the edge of the crown. And I think this will be absolutely lovely. Oops. This will be absolutely lovely. Now, the reason it doesn't bother me, okay, so you got some little evenness there, is because what I typically do, and what I did with this hat, is I take the bottom and I add, like this is added because of the unevenness. That's part of the artistic building of the hat. So now, if you do want to even and you want it to go perfectly with the seam, you can certainly work towards that. You know, you can make that happen, and it's not difficult. I just happen to do it that way. So now with this, I'm going to show you how I pinch the sides. So this right here, we're going to start with this one because the pin is going a little bit, yeah. So I just want to show you this. It's, if any of you have made a metered corner, if you're a sewist, you've probably made a metered corner. It's almost like that. I'm trying to get this pin. I'm going to repin this because the pin is falling out. And you know, with your pinning, it's perfectly fine to take your time. Take your time and enjoy the fact that you are designing an artistic hat. You're doing this. So this is what I'm trying to show you. I'm going to leave this one unpinned for a minute. So you see the edges of each panel I'm bringing together, and I'm almost kind of like just tucking the crown in there just so it gets caught a tiny bit. You see that? Now, if there's any coming out at the top, you can either sew it, or you can trim it. So I'm just going to get I just want to get my pin in there. I got to turn it towards me. Okay. Now this leaves this effect, and that's kind of what I'm going for. So I'm going to pin the next panel. Now this one you might be able to see a little bit better because there's no fabrics there. So I'm just going to kind of turn this around. See if I can get it to catch. There we go. And now I'm just going to do the same thing. I just want I want to pinch these. So I've got that pretty much stationary for a moment. And I'm pinching the edges and then pinning. Now up here, I just pulled that out because I got that. Up here, it's the same thing. I want to pinch the edges, and I want to bring the crown piece within my pinch. I'm pinching the crown piece a little bit too. So that is how I am doing this particular hat. Now, will these pinches be super emphasized? Um, so they will not. The pinches will not be super emphasized, but they will, in other words, when I sew this together, I will be sewing on the edge. You know, just like when you're sewing your quilt, you sew, and you're doing a hem, you sew right on the edge of it. So, in other words, up here towards the edge is where I'm sewing. I'm not sewing way down here because if you sew way down here, you've just taken away a full half inch. So you want the little effect of the pinched sewing, and I may do that by whip stitching it. I may do running stitch. I don't think I'll do machine stitch. This will be all hand stitched. I may throw it through the machine at the end for a little effect or something. But if I feel it needs it for even reinforcement, then I would do it. But that is how I do it, because when you sew on the edges here, finely and mindfully, and maybe 2 times to reinforce your seams, what you're doing is you're leaving room now. You're leaving that extra room of the pinched effect. So now you can do the pinched effect, or for those of you who are like, oh my God, Carmella, I really don't like that. That's driving me crazy. What you can do is this. Is a super simple. Is just take your panel, right like that, and just fold it over your next panel. Pin it and sew. The only thing is, before you sew, you want to double check your diameter. And the way you do that, I'm just going to put this hat to the side for the moment. For those of you who do not know, the way you do that with your hat is you're going to take your hat and lay it down like this. Just like when you're crocheting, you take your hat and you lay it down to measure. And so, yes, you you check, you measure it like that. Now, this says 12, yes, but you must consider the inside is quilted. So I always take about an inch off of that and give it about a 22. And so you always want to consider you're going to give it a lining. So, but with that, that's how you check it before you sew it. So that gives you a really good idea on how much you've taken up here. Now, the other thing I want to show you, before you sew, you've done all your pinning, you've got your panels on, you've either pinned them with pinching each of them on or overlapping each of them. But what you want to do is take the pins out of the top of the crown, and you just really want to shift this hat around a little bit and kind of giving yourself an idea of what you have here. So kind of, and you can turn it, give it, kind of take a look at what you've got, get yourself oriented to it, and think about, too, the seams. Do you want to add seams to the bottom here? Like, look, this one has a seam. Or, oh, see, this isn't pinned. Of course, I didn't pin them all, but I can pin this right now. And now, the other thing is, just to remind you, so yes, you certainly can do this any way you want. If you want to pin your panels and then sew the entire hat through the machine, you can do that. The only caution I draw on that one is you're going to have difficulty reaching and really securing some of these pieces, especially a design like this with the tips. So this is why I sew each panel individually before I pin. And so with that, I hope that this helps you building your hat. And if you'd like to see me sewing this hat, I'm happy to do that and to show you how I'm doing that. And it will be all hand sewn. So, and what I'm going to do today is I'm just checking the time, and because this is so relaxing for me, I have a couple of hours left of work, so I need to sit and do a little more editing. And then what I'm going to do is just sit and relax, watch TV, and sew my hat. And I'll be sharing the hat with you when it's done. Today's Monday. This should be done by Wednesday because I'd like to get a number of hats done, and I'm a little behind the game because of this cold that came on. I'm feeling much better now, but when it came on, I didn't feel too good. So anyway, with that, I hope that you have a beautiful day. I hope this inspires you. Get your scraps out. And remember, if you need motivation for using scraps and helping the earth and extending fibers, think like this: 11 million metric tons of waste are right now in the landfills. I think it's 11 million metric tons of waste, and that's equivalent to like 2,000 to 2,200 pounds per metric. So anyway, or it's 292 million MSW, which is solid waste. So 292 million pounds of solid waste. So that always kind of gets me going. Like, what can I use? What can I do to kind of extend some of these fabrics? So anyway, with that, you have a beautiful day.